Hello, my dotlings. This is a re-upload. I've unlinked it from the Dottie the Psychic channel. In case somebody has actually put out a link there, they'll still be able to find it over there. But I wanted to kind of get this kind of content off of my other channel that's supposed to be directed towards, like, psychic stuff, you know? And not that I don't touch some pretty deep subjects on there. I thought the scammer video was, like... I was self-impressed with the scammer video, okay? And the Teshumancy video. But let's face it, y'all. This is not the same vibe here. This is not the same kind of video. This is definitely more Madame Tortuga related as this channel begins to evolve and I start to do more podcast-style content on here. And I definitely want to get just back into the swing. But I am imperfect and I am learning to appreciate that. So this video was definitely part of that process. A lot of the stuff I don't mention in here is the actual impact on my mental health throughout this, but actually you can kind of see it a little bit, especially when I suddenly shaved my head, which has been that long ago since I started this video. It was a wild ride. So, trigger warnings, the house for... One of my friends described it as one person's experience with stochastic, English hard, terrorism. I don't know if that's true or not, but it was a bad enough and weird enough situation that I still don't know that I have fully wrapped my head around everything that happened. But I think it's stuff we need to talk about. Words need to be said. Things need to be heard. That being said, if you're not in the right space for it, I get it. As for the rest, I have no delusions of swaying a bunch of pseudo-moralistic heretics. 'Cause I've been living life right like I could just die any minute. Hello, my dotlings. This is going to be an ugly one. This is going to be a deep, ugly video. It's going to be all about my opinion on politics, and I have no intentions of watching my language, and I'll probably get pretty heated. And I'm going to try not to do the thing where I stop and start the video a million times. And I'm only going to cut the things I actually regret saying. Which ain't a whole lot at this point. It's hard not to make bitter comments about the economy looking at the staircases. Speaking of the economy, don't forget to like and share and subscribe so that someday in the vague and distant future I can actually make a living on this. If you'd also like to help out, you can join me on Patreon. For $1 a month, you get extra stuff, and I become a little more financially viable. What we have here is a lovely order of fried mushrooms and a baked potato with broccoli on it. And it was delicious, or I probably would have been delicious. I can't remember enjoying it because everything around that situation sucked. And y'all better just go ahead and break out a bottle of something nice and take a shot every time you hear it fuck. Or any derivative of the word fuck, because I am going to rail the fuck on. Because we were there for the SCAM Act. Save Children and Adolescents from Medical Experimentation. First the fuck of all, this is not how we determine best medical practice. We don't let people who have zero medical experience make laws about medical stuff what the fuck? Best practice is determined by a board of certified physicians. Things get peer reviewed. I want to apologize to Kristen for taking this right out of her hand one day, like right after it happened. I literally just took it right out of her hand because I was so shocked that I just didn't hand it back to her when she handed it to me. Because some of the language in here is just terrifying. One delegate actually admitted he'd done a 5-minute Google search before he went in and voted on this. And so, yeah, that's all that's required to make a massive medical legislation. 5-minute Google search makes you smarter than a doctor. So, I went there to live stream it, and I was watching mothers, and I was watching people who had transitioned, and I was watching medical professionals speak about how this was dumb as dog shit. And 2 assholes. One hate preacher and one guy who came in, lamented about how his grandkid was in the process of transitioning and ran out. And look, I'm sure my grandma had the same reaction when she found out I was pagan. But it's not your fucking life, dude. Not your fucking life. Go live your fucking life. And if you don't want to talk to your grandkid because they're trans, then that is on you, asshole. Ooh. So, in my naivete, I thought that would have some sort of effect on whether this bill was going to go through or what changes were going to be made to it. It didn't take very long to realize that not only did these people not give a shit about their fellow West Virginians, but honestly did not have to sit through all the speeches. They didn't have to be there for that. I'm sure they're tired. I'm sure they need a break from all their hard legislation. See?
There you go. Now you got it.
Okay, hello my dotlings. I'm here with Rob. We're at the Black Policy, what is it? Black Policy Day?
Yes.
At
the
Capitol. Dragging Rob out again. Rob and I actually had a really good time that day. You can see a lot of the art that was going on, but essentially this was a civics day for high schoolers, which is great. And it was kind of a nice break, honestly.
Some things have changed because of gerrymandering. So they did redistricting after the new census data came out.
Yes. I'm definitely interested in this.
This, particularly ridiculous for Charleston, is how they drew the Senate District 8 right here. You can see the difference between 8 and 17 here.
Yeah.
Here, that little like red blurb right there is the west side of Charleston. So they've connected now the west side of Charleston with like Clay County and like rural areas. So very like different needs. It just, yeah.
This is how they dilute them.
Yep.
Yeah. Hi, Mom.
That's become a running joke, man. Look over here, we got crayons.
Hey, wait, what circle now? Okay.
So this is for the Crown Act, let me see. Creating a respectful and open world of natural hair. Okay, we got more cultural engagement going on upstairs.
This is where everybody is. You can hear it.
They hear them? Woo!
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I don't know if y'all can hear it or not. I see tiaras. That's cool. Anywhere people breaking out tiaras, I know I'm where I'm supposed to be. So I thought this quilt was interesting, and I want to thank Rob for putting a square on there. Also at this time, there were not children, but young people making speeches and talking about civics and things to a room full of high schoolers. So we were essentially out of place. But it was a good time. So this is Rob, my friend. I dragged him around today with me, and you may recognize him from the Ashland Merch Room Change video and Teaching the White Girl, which is not what it was called 10 minutes ago. As before, like, yeah, I'm going to change the name to Teaching the White Girl while I'm editing this video.
Stay tuned for episode 2.
But I want you to look at us wall. So the reason we did the Teaching the White Girl video was because it was in the middle of the riots and stuff.
George Floyd.
Yeah. And that's how we ended up at the Ashland March for Change. But he also had an assignment due for the first degrees. We was trying to get that one. He had to get a few more classes, so he had to take an African American Studies class.
They were glad to have me.
What was your grade in that class, Rob?
A. 3.98.
That's good.
Nah, not bad.
Not bad. All right. So thank you, Rob, for coming with us today.
Yes, the honor was mine.
Safe travel and much profit to you. So I do want to thank Rob for going with me that day. I thought that it would interest him the most, and he had a good time. So we hung out, and just because it was the best day does not mean that it was a perfect day. He and I heard several people make some very weird comments about some of the bills they wanted to pass through. One specifically stuck out that they wanted to try and bring back creationist theory, which if you're not Christian, you don't really want to hear. And since my audience is primarily pagan, yeah, that's not the only thing they did and said that made me personally as a pagan nervous. But we'll get to that in just a moment. I want to say that this building is nerve-wracking. It is not a maze, it is in fact a labyrinth where all paths lead to the center but do not necessarily lead right back out. I genuinely felt more comfortable at the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. I made it to Fairness Day at the Capitol. This is the third time I've been in this building. I've literally been in this building more this month than I have in any other time of my life. Come on.
See, they think that we are in the minority, but where there is love, we will always be the majority. See, they think that we are demons, and they think that we are destruction, but we are love, and we deserve to be loved and respected.
Because this is Miss Danielle Walker. I've seen her at Morgantown Pride. I have seen her at this, obviously. In fact, I even saw her at the women's rights rally. She spoke at the women's rights rally right after Roe v. Wade fell. And she was also at the ACLU meeting when I had to speak to their legal department. Okay, so that's the guns rights advocacy group. There's a bunch of high schoolers, and of course there was us. We were all the LGBT. I just want to take a moment and look at this architecture, though. It is beautiful. Fun facts about Dottie the Psychic. I actually have severe anxiety, and sometimes will have an anxiety attack, which happened right in the middle of this, between the crowd and the monotony of waiting for them to talk. I couldn't take it. I ended up running out of the room and hiding in the bathroom for a little while. But not before I got to see them have a prayer in the House of Delegates, to open the House of Delegates. I expected the Pledge of Allegiance. I expected the national anthem. I did not, however, expect them to have an actual prayer because I still believed in the separation of state and church.
Thank you, sir. Dear God, we live in a world that is in a hurry for everything, including decisions. It is also a world that is increasingly coercive, full of conflict. You have called these legislators to be decision makers. Sometimes when they are faced with the most difficult decisions, I'm sure they may feel at times like running away and hiding. But with your help, you will guide them to make the right decisions that will benefit our entire state of West Virginia. We know you have called this special group of men and women to stand in your place as fair-minded adjudicators of order. Thank you for the example of your son, who taught us to be deliberate in our search for the right answer. We pause a moment of quietness to ask your spirit to rest upon them. Give them courage to rise to the challenge and not be
this is not okay. I know that, like, I mean, I came out as a pagan when I was like 16, and most of you are probably like, why is this not okay? And I'll tell you why it's not okay. Because I don't think in God we trust should be a part of our country at all. Because I do not trust in that God. The whole point is that this is a man-made structure, and there should be a certain amount of patriotism. And so I completely understand why we did the Pledge of Allegiance. I completely understand if we did the, like, I don't remember what the other thing was, like a state pledge or something. I don't know. And I just don't care that the individual delegates had to call out every single person in the room, and that took forever. And that's eventually when I snapped and ran. But it was after watching this guy pray over the House of Delegates. I don't care what the delegates believe. I don't care what... It's none of my business what anybody believes. And I know that may sound crazy, as, you know, I'm a big part of the pagan community, but that's something that is understood in the pagan community. We have Christians in the pagan community. We got Christo-pagans. We got atheists in the pagan community. It's none of my damn business what you believe. And it's definitely not the state's business what you believe. And the fact that they are having prayer in the House of Delegates is disturbing. And you should be disturbed by it. Especially if you are not a Christian. It seems so benign. But I wonder if they would let me do a ritual right there on the floor. I think I should have the right. If that guy can get up and pray, then I should be able to do a Wiccan ceremony right there in the floor. I'm not Wiccan, but a pagan ceremony of sorts. I don't know. It's like we should have an opening ritual right there. It's like opening ritual at a pagan pride makes sense because it's a pagan event. Prayer in church, by all means. That's what the church is for. The House of Delegates is not a damn church. Fuck. That's cool. Have a nice day. Just to wildly switch gears on you, you should definitely go and check out all of the statues and buildings and things. I think we even got to take a picture of ourselves in the governor's office, which isn't here because I was showing off pictures of the statue and the building. So yeah, that was pretty. Okay, folks, hopefully this is the last time I'm going to be here for a very long time, but I'm hoping to go speak at a public hearing. So that's about to go down. First of all, I would say, Danielle Walker, I just want to tell you what I'm about to say has nothing to do with you. I love and respect your work. You have my blessing and my vote. As for the rest, I have no delusions of swaying a bunch of pseudo-moralistic heretics. In this very room, I have watched mothers beg for the lives of their children and be ignored. 83-10, I watched you paint targets on the backs of children to advance a theocracy. I had so much more to say, but honestly, there's no point. This bill is a mockery of what my kind already know. Whether you pass it or not, the damage is done. It's proof, further proof, that you're more willing to create turmoil than to actually stop and fix something. I want to address my fellow pagans and my fellow queers. Those who would do us harm cannot tell the difference between us, and neither can I. This had to do with the RFRA Act, and they just, what a fucking bunk bill to begin with. Honestly. It is the Return of Religious Freedoms Act, which basically means you can discriminate based on your religion, which, duh. Honestly, it's not like something we didn't already know. If somebody does not want to serve you, if somebody does not want to provide you freaking care, then they're not gonna. Honestly, it's probably better that people can just opt out for religious reasons or whatever versus half-assing their job. But we all know it was fear-mongering. It was stupid. Everybody knows that if a boss wants to fire you because of your religion, they'll fire you. They'll find a way. And you can't make somebody do something they don't want to do. It was bullshit. We all know it's bullshit. Absolute fuck. Side note, it was kind of cool to make it into the newspaper. Okay, so like in the first montage of me walking into the building to go and do my speech, I want you to like notice that there wasn't a lot of noise. I'll play a quick clip here just for you to pick up on it. Okay, so I want you to contrast that when the building is nearly empty. Like, that was when we were going to the hearing, like that, which shows you how much that it was generally respected. But I want you to compare that noise to the noises you're about to hear from the protest. This, to me, was one of the most eerie noises I've ever heard. I've literally heard death rattles, folks. I used to be a nurse, and that's, like, it's just part of my mythos that I have heard some weird shit in my life. But this noise going into the building was genuinely eerie to me.
Quick announcement real quick. If you need earplugs or cough drops, just find one of us.
Hold it up for me, you beautiful. Thank you. Okay, Papaw, tell me you got a persecution complex without telling me you've got a persecution complex. Let's break this outfit down. Because he put a lot of work into it, and I kind of respect somebody standing by their pile of bullshit. The hat, I don't know if you can read it or not. I don't know if you're watching this on your phone and it's super small, or if I can even I had to go clip by clip to find a legible shot of this guy anyway. So his hat says, "Let us worship," and then it's got like a circle and a cross in the middle. I'm like, who's stopping you? Why are you worshiping execution? Like, there's a lot of problems here. Look, I'm not saying, look, if you want to worship a guy on a stick, you worship a guy on a stick. Just try not to stick that stick in my vagina, okay? That's my point. That's all I want, is just keep your stick out of my vagina. Consent is key. And this shirt. Let's talk about the necklace before we get to the shirt. The necklace, I believe, is nails. It's made of nails that are wired together, and I think it's kind of boss if he wasn't such an asshole. That would be a real boss. Like, you know what? That's like some ancient Christian necklace. Like, I get it. You know, if one of my Christian friends was sporting one of these, I'd be like, that's pretty cool. You know? Do those come in Thor's hammers? Do they come in pentagrams? Like, are we... two nails basically bound together with wire. Okay, dude. Okay. Make me feel sorry for Jesus. Dude, you really make me feel sorry for Jesus. Like, you imagine you do all these things. Like, you make a huge sacrifice to help save humanity. Because it's not just, like, it was let's face it, the execution was just the way to drive it home. Like, that's just some shit, like, he was out there trying to teach people to do better. And that's the part people get. You know, early Christians just walked around with, like, the fish symbol. I'm like, okay, you know what? That's really cool. Like, yeah, let's remember the good shit he did, rather than the time he got nailed to a plank and hoisted in the air to suffer and die. Now moving on to the shirt. He who kneels before God can stand before anyone, covered in... Y'all make me feel sorry for Jesus, okay? Like, it's just like... Is that a crusader? That is a crusader. That's a knight. You know, what is with the phallic things here? You know, sticks and swords. Papaw, tell me that you can't get it in without telling me you can't get it in. Hey, Papaw, if birth control is against God's will, then so is erectile dysfunction medication. Just saying. Just saying. Okay, I'm done roasting Grandpa. I should have parboiled his ass first anyway. Before we go back to following this last part of the whole situation that was going on, I want you to notice that it's been this long since that part was shot. I shaved my head, and I realize now that it was kind of one of those, you're in your crazy situation and you feel like you can't get control, you do things that you probably wouldn't do normally. Because I remember one time telling my family, if I shave my head, I'm probably having a psychiatric episode. They didn't say anything when I shaved my head. I'm like, hey. And it wasn't until well after that I think number one, they have come to expect that kind of behavior from me. Number 2, it was obvious what was going on, and what are you gonna do? Yeah, let's get back to it. So, honest to God, this is the least amount of social phobia I've experienced this entire saga. I've learned far too much about the life of a Bill. I am exhausted, and everybody's exhausted.
I'll help with that.
And they can't take our laughter either. And I said, all right.
When I was a junior in high school, there was this thing that we called Halloween. It was an event that happened my junior year. And basically, in front of the school, there was a set of stone benches that were in a U. And then there was a set of stone benches that were just in front of the building. And the goth kids would normally sit in this U, and that was just kind of their area. Everybody's got their area in school. One day I come out there, and I would sometimes hang out with the goth kids. I was not okay at the time. We'll not have that conversation. Anyway, so sometimes I would hang out with the goth kids, and so I went out there, and they are all standing inside the circle. They're not sitting at the benches. They're standing inside the circle, and all the redneck kids have come up onto the benches. They're standing on the stone benches, preaching verses and throwing things. And it started out, I remember watching it devolve. Like, it went from just yelling verses at them to throwing paper to pretending like they were doing exorcisms, and then they started throwing pop bottles and objects, and that shit hurts. Y'all, the half-empty pop bottle, I remember seeing, it was a Mountain Dew 24 ounce, because this was back before they dropped the size. Something you kids probably don't even remember. I'm getting old. Anyway, I remember watching that, and I remember that there was a teacher, Mr. Whaley, rest in piss, 20 feet away, maybe, very intentionally not looking at what's going on. And I came up in front of him, and I'm like, do you not see what's going on? And he gave me the lamest excuse I've ever heard. He's like, well, what if they're just having fun? I'm like, the goth kids are not having fun. You need to do something about that. And he's not gonna do anything about that. So I remember going into the cafeteria and just yelling about it and just having a good old-fashioned freak out. Like, I ran around just moving, like, I gotta do what I can. And I think a couple of other people were doing the same thing. So they all go out, and so the number of goth kids goes from basically right around 10 to probably between 30, 45 of us. It was a pretty big school. And it wasn't, and I think I must have popped out a couple of times and run back in, I don't know. But I remember watching the goth kids move over and the redneck kids following them before the mass crowd came out. But once the mass crowd, it took 45 of us to deter, and finally the rednecks, like, left. It took enough people to deter them. And so we're all standing together, all kind of huddled up and in defensive mode. And this is just, it's an intense situation. Especially for a bunch of high schoolers. This was an unreal situation for us. And then the bell rang. And we all just went back to class like nothing. Just like we were trained to do. We just went back to class. And I don't think anything ever happened. In this moment, when the protest was over and we all stand up and we're all exhausted, and then we just leave. We all just left. And it was just over. And the void that was left in my mind just crashed down around me because I didn't know what to do. We all just kind of went our separate ways.
My name is Reverend Oliver Snow. I am a Christian preacher, and transphobia is against my religion. So God called me to this about 5 years ago. I was an atheist. I thought I was losing my mind. But so I ended up completely just ignoring all of that. And I had started working in online, as a content creator. And I started doing like mutual aid projects online. And there began to be this little joke because, you know, I was living in Appalachia, that I was the Reverend of the Church of Mothman. And we all thought that was very funny. And because, you know, I was working in this kind of, at the time, a very secular kind of ministry role, people started coming to me for advice and spiritual advice. And I was like, oh no, I don't know what I believe. And I probably should think about that. And so I ended up kind of finding myself back in the church, and back involved with Christianity. And God kind of said, joke's on you. So I ended up finding my way back to the cloth. So I've known something was wrong with my body since early puberty. But, you know, this was the late 90s, early 2000s. We didn't talk about those things back then. So it was just this nameless despair that I kind of walked through my life with. And the older I got, the more I realized that there was just this kind of constant incongruity with my body. Again, I just had no name, no words for it. And shortly after I gave birth to my son, a friend came to me and was like, I think, have you thought maybe you're trans? And of course I was like, no, absolutely not. That's the silliest thing I've ever heard. And then I really sat down and thought about it. And I'm like, I feel like maybe cis people just don't try to build guillotines for their breasts when they're like 13 years old, That's just not something I feel like cis people want to do. And, cis people probably don't, dream of going to sleep and waking up a boy the next day, you know what I mean? So about 3 years ago now, I started on testosterone, and I got top surgery last year, and I now pretty much just walk through society as a man and as a father, and I couldn't be more grateful for my ability to do that.
Hi, my name is Ash Shade. My pronouns are he, him. I am a local trans man. I happen to work in the mental health field as an outpatient therapist, and I am a recognized ordained minister with the Satanic Temple. Transphobia is against my religion. Me and transitioning, it's a very long story that goes all the way back to the 90s, to be honest. Had my first symptoms of gender dysphoria at like 4 or 5. We never really had a word for it back then. It was just something you didn't talk about. They just thought I was kind of rowdy and rough and tumble. And when precocious puberty started hitting, I started expressing all these new feelings. And, well, not new to me, but nobody else was really talking about it, and I didn't understand what the deal was with the adults in my life. I just knew that people were mad. Very mad. So I was about 8 years old, 9 maybe, when I got a formal diagnosis of gender identity disorder. Of course, it's not called that anymore. The DSM has changed, but back 20 years ago, that's what the technical term was. And trans people were largely pathologized. I was in 5th grade, so at the threat of expulsion, I was outed to my entire class by the teachers, sent to school in pink on picture day, and had all of my belongings that weren't considered gender non-conforming. They were bagged and thrown away. Toys, clothes, anything. And I thought I was mentally ill, I thought I was crazy, and I knew that people were ashamed of me, so I donned my goth garb because I really liked spooky culture too. It's my way of escaping forced femininity. Of course, kids at school had something new to pick on me about, so they just called me the devil worshiper and this and that. So, push comes to shove, and one thing leads to another. And then somehow you get me. It's called a self-fulfilling prophecy, is the technical term. So I just find it funny. Here I am with top surgery and running around in my Satan wagon all day now. Right. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
If I could tell my opposition anything, I'd ask them to talk to an actual trans person who's been through the procedures, who's been to the court hearings, and legally almost has everything done. It's far harder of a process than a lot of the media will make it out to be. You can't just walk into a doctor's office and say this, this, and this. It's not how that works. It's a life-altering process for people, and even though I ended up with medical debts just falling out, like bills up to my eyeballs, scars for the rest of my life, sexual changes, things like that. Even though I've had a few downs, and a divorce, but...
That wasn't a bad thing, though.
Wasn't a bad thing. Yeah, the divorce wasn't a bad thing, though. Even though I've paid so much just to be my authentic self, it's helped me live a normal life. And I can be there for my daughter. I get to watch her grow up now. I get to have a functional life. That's what I wish they knew.
Hi, I'm Dottie. My pronouns are they, them, and I am a non-binary pagan. And transphobia is against my religion. I came out as a pagan and a bisexual when I was like 16. And I think if I'd had the vocabulary then, I would have come out as non-binary then. But I didn't. And I am fortunate enough to be comfortable in my body. I've always kind of been mocked as a tomboy. I mean, look, this is who you get. Bare face. Even when I dress up in like to look nice at the office, it's usually like dress pants and a shirt. And I don't really pay that much attention. Sometimes it's more masculine, sometimes it's more feminine. It's usually on a little goth side. Little on the goth side. Otherwise, it's like t-shirt and jeans. Unless I dress up, which I do occasionally dress up. Like, although sometimes when I dress up, I go so far into the feminine that it becomes drag. And transphobia is against my religion, which is saying something, folks, because I've only got two morals: be honest and be kind. And this whole wave of transphobia is neither of those things. Now I wanted to go into like everything that's gone on between these incidents and when I'm finally getting this out of my system. But it's impossible to recap everything that happened from Palestine to Palestine. East Palestine, Google it, to the Gaza Strip. And, you know, it's been a wild ride, folks. There's plenty of stuff there that other YouTubers, and I don't want to become a political or news-related channel. There's just no way I could do that. I couldn't do that. I wouldn't want to do that. It's not something that interests me in the slightest. But there are some things that have happened that I know are not going to get put together or reported that happened that our community knows a little bit about, but nobody really it didn't get talked about in the media at all. I know of 3 different families that got ran out of where they lived. 2 of them were definitely for their religion, and one of them was religion/trans status. One of them was Ash, the gentleman that was just on. Lovely guy. It's kind of hard to tell why exactly he got pinpointed, because he's a trans man and a Satanist. So one of those 2 things was bound to get him just targeted in the state of fucking West Virginia. In fact, I think it alternated between the 2. Nobody was shocked when he finally had to leave, because it started to affect his kid. And how fucked up is that? Like, just, you know, let's talk about how people will just blow up CPS on somebody they don't like. Never mind the meth heads who have kids. No, let's blow up the CPS on somebody whose kid is fed and meeting her benchmarks. Like, just, he has a little girl. That's why her, okay? She's doing good. And I hope she keeps doing good. But he had to leave to protect his child. The next one is the Telltale Atheist, who is a cis white guy. But he is an atheist. And I'll try to put a link to the video where he talked about why he had to leave. But, yeah, like he came under actual assault. People driving by his house, taking pictures of his car, calling his kid and saying horrible things because he's an atheist. And his kid spoke up about a health teacher teaching the Bible in health class. That's why he got ran out. And again, he had to fear for his child. Just fucking theme here, y'all. And I'm not going to use the name of the third group of people who got run out because I haven't heard from them. I hope they're doing all right. I hope they got out and are flying under the radar somewhere. But if you're in the pagan community, then you probably already know who I'm talking about. But there was a shop that set up in a place that none of us, most people wouldn't have had the balls to set up shop where this shop was set up to begin with. And then to be very open about their heathenism. And they had problems getting deliveries, and somebody ended up busting out their shop front, and they ended up having to shut the shop down. And if you know the name, then you can look it up and see they left their Facebook stuff up. But if you don't know the name, I'm not going to be the one to point it out to you. I did try to pass it on to the ACLU, but I mean, they take 6 cases a year. I sent the information on. That's all. I did what I could, which wasn't enough. But it's never enough. And it's not going to be enough until we can do something about this. But this isn't legal. You know, it's not like the law can really do anything to stop people from driving other people out of their homes. Not really. But that happened. And I think we should all know it fucking happened. It happened 3 times. I had a guy in here just last week who, because he'd criticized Trump and had said some just not even full-on left-leaning shit, he became so he got shunned, like old school shunned. Not old school shunned. It was quiet shunning. Like, I'm sure they didn't, the town didn't come together and agree to ignore that this guy existed. But everybody stopped talking to him. To the point where he left because he was nervous. I know people who have been disowned by their family because they're pagan. There was a rather infamous story where some protesters oiled a park before an event because they'd heard that there was going to be a witch. And then we get to pagan pride. This is from Pagan Pride in Charleston area, September 29th, 2019. It was held in St. Albans at Ordnance Park, and we had some protesters. I don't know if you can hear this in the background, but Pagan Pride this year is official, because we got a protester. Get in there? Oh, can we get in?
We'll start with the term pagan. It comes from the Latin term paganus, and that was from the early days of them.
Look, we're being videotaped. We're famous. Ah!
I'm so sorry.
This event was the spark that grew in the community. Like, this was the seed being planted. Colin, hail the traveler. Many blessings upon his soul. May you come back as a well cared for, yippy ass purse dog. You have earned that, sir. He had a great love for dogs specifically, but also the pagan community. And we loved him too. But he also had a tendency to just antagonistic disorganization. Which is why we ended up with these protesters in the first place. Like, no permit. We did not have a permit for this thing. We didn't have music. They were true, like, these protesters were completely unmitigated. And to date, the worst that I've run into. And apparently they had been, like, the first to show up at a pagan event in, like, 20 years. You could see just the joy on my face. And part of that is because I used to be a nurse, and you kind of, like, when somebody hands you a ball of their own shit, like, this is not okay behavior. You can't get angry. You cannot get angry when somebody acts up as a nurse. You have to find the great deal of humor in the pinch pot made of human fecal material that the crazy person has just handed you. And that sense of humor spreads out. So I thought these people were hilarious. I thought they were funny and we should openly mock them. But everybody was like, no, let's not engage. I'm like, that didn't help. They were impressive. I will say that. They were there all day. They were annoying. The only time they really bothered me was when we realized how much that they were directing their ire at the children. Like, they were scaring kids. One lady had to be walked to her car because they were taking pictures of her and her kids. It's a fucking theme. Whenever these people come out, they're always so concerned about the kids. They call CPS on people. It's so gross. Poor Rose was in charge of kids' activities, and she finally snapped about 2/3 through the day. And we had to, like, lead her off and calm her down because she was confronting these people, and they had the camera in her face. I'm not gonna forget that shit. It was terrible. They were unmitigated and terrible people. And they truly believed, I don't know what they believe. They believe in God. They believe in Jesus. Like, this does not seem like Jesus behavior. Like, it's not my book. It's not my religion. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know more than I do. But I don't think that's what the guy said to do. I don't think that's who the guy was. He seemed like a pretty cool, hippie, liberal kind of guy. Just saying. If your God would rather hang out with us than with you, maybe you're a problem. Just saying. Fuck. Okay. So I want to get through this next section quickly, but logically. Obviously, the protesters did not have the effect that they were going to have. In fact, they solidified the community. They solidified that event. Colin passed away in 2022, about a month before his event was supposed to happen, and so that year it got canceled. One thing and another happened, and I volunteered to take lead on this project. And at that moment, a lot of people started following me, and I know that I didn't want to be financially responsible for this, not alone anyway. Not only that, but there's so much more that the community wants and needs that we decided as a group to kind of carry this into the next level, which is to create a nonprofit organization that was going to do more for the community. And that's how we went from Charleston area Pagan Pride event to Metro Valley Pagan Pride nonprofit organization. And that's also how I ended up being president, which is very important to me, and I'm very proud, but I'm also trying as a person imperfectly to not make this a personal ego trip, but it's important to what's about to fucking happen. So, about 3 weeks before Broom Not Vroom, which is Metro Valley Pagans Pride's flagship event, I start getting messages. All sorts of fun messages from a community that is panicking. So, before I go into this, I just want to say that being pagan does not make you anti-Christian. There are actually Christo-pagans and just Christians that have been a very important part of the pagan community because of their open-mindedness, because they made space for us in weird places. Is not inherently anti-anything. We are just a bunch of people hanging out, essentially, grooving on our own faith and believing in our own gods, and nobody is gonna be upset because you follow Jesus and don't follow their gods, as long as you're not a dick about it. But there are plenty of people who are just being a dick about it. And so Labor Day weekend, this onslaught of dickery rolled over us and created a panic in the pagan community because some asshole went through and posted this letter to all the churches in the area. They had a big event about it. This was supposed to be the night before at the same spot. They prayed over the location to get us to leave. They tried to make our entertainment illegal. Although this came off of Putnam County Pride, we knew that something like this was going to come down. The rest of it was all just for us.
It says, Dear church leadership, on September 16th, an event will take place in Hurricane, advertised as Metro Valley Pagan Pride 2023.
It's Broom Not Vroom, asshole.
This event is hosted by Metro Valley Pagan Pride, which has been given nonprofit status as a religious organization. The MVPP promotes alternative religions such as atheism and Satanism.
Metro Valley Pagan Pride does not promote atheism or Satanism. We just make space for them. If you want to do a class on what you believe, I'm willing to take it. And I think that's what most of us are interested in, just learning about what other people believe. But we got preached on They prayed for us and everything. I am not listening to this whole clip again to try and pick out the part where they actually prayed for us. But basically, they prayed that God would touch our hearts and turn our ways so that we would not do this. But we did.
Hello, my fellow pagans. We're here at the very first Metro Valley Pagan Pride. And why are
It's broom, not vroom, asshole.
you here? You're watching me live when you could be here live. Look, the merchants are getting set up. We've got entertainment getting ready to go on. I've got Aaron getting ready to do our opening ritual. Hello. We've got baked goods. We've got, we've got raffle goods. We got baked goods. We got a hot dog sale. Baby, we got it all.
There were so many people that made it such a wonderful experience. And it would not have happened without you. And you know who you are, and thank you. We had a guy running the whole, we had a hot dog sale. We had a bake sale. We had a raffle. We had some of them amazing kids' activities. We had like 30 some odd merchants. We had a family-friendly drag queen. We had a belly dancer. We had a fire eater. We had a singer. We had security. And we had protesters. If you were at the event, you may not realize that we had protesters, but we did have protesters. But we had anticipated protesters. We started planning this event in February, and that's when we started anticipating having protesters. We dotted all our I's, we crossed all our T's, we had security, we talked to the local police department. They were actually driving around every half an hour just to check and make sure we were okay. They were all amazing. The site crew was amazing. The park staff was amazing. Good God, I'm getting tired. The police were amazing. It was an amazing experience. And because we had made sure that we had everything in order, the protesters basically had to do their protesting on the sidewalk outside of the park. So essentially, they're the first thing they could have been. It was like free advertising, okay? It was like having a billboard out there. But it's also part of why people may not have seen them, because they weren't allowed in the park. And it's funny because they were having a soccer tournament that day at the same park. So at least one person stopped and asked them why they were protesting kids' soccer. And if you are watching this video, I want you to get a hold of me and I will give you a free reading, because that made my day. Oh my God, it was beautiful. It was just a beautiful moment. Now, we did have a few people like sneak in with like the pamphlets and the chick tracts and try to pass them out, but like, why? Security would ask him to leave, and they usually would. This event was amazing. Next year is going to be even more amazing. And it's not the only thing we're doing. It really isn't. Definitely, I think I already plugged them, but check out Metro Valley Pagan Pride on Patreon and Facebook and our website. It's a slow grow. Like any pagan effort, it's just us, We, the community, are making it happen, and it's amazing. It really is amazing. It was a huge event. It was wonderful. And there's just one more thing I gotta show you that happened after. About a week after, I got this clip.
The Lord laid on my heart that we needed to stand our ground and take our authority as believers in Christ to push back darkness that was seeking to invade Putnam County. We were not warring against people. We were not wrestling against flesh and blood, but we were coming against the enemy of our souls who was seeking to advance his kingdom. Do you know that Satan has a kingdom? He has a will, and he was seeking to infiltrate through a satanic, pagan, atheistic, agnostic, witchcraft, divination kind of event. A week ago, Friday night, over 200 people gathered at the same shelter where that satanic event was going to take place the very next day. And did we ever have a time in the Lord? The Lord showed up. People from many counties, many churches came to join us. I am told by an eyewitness who is in this room that no one attended the pagan pride events. Nobody came! Nobody came! Glory to God! Glory to God! The Lion of the tribe of Judah is roaring through his church! He's roaring through his people!
Fuck. So originally, I had edited this clip with some funny music in it and some clips of me making fun of her so that I could milk the lol cow, as the kids say. I've obviously not spent too much time on Tumblr. I've probably spent more time in a Tumblr. But anyway, so I just want to talk about one more thing before we wrap up, and I give you my final thoughts. This drag ban, that was not actually a drag ban, it was a decency ordinance, and it did pass. And it did nothing but cause turmoil. It's so stupid. It's so stupid and poorly written, because what happened was a bunch of hate preachers wanted to put in a drag ban. And actually, when I was at the Hurricane Council reading, the preacher asked if they had amended it to include the phrase men dressing like women and women dressing like men. And he was not a part of the council. I don't know what his job was, but he was like some sort of like handler who's standing over at the podium. He's like, we've talked to our lawyers and they don't want that in there. And everybody was like, well, what does that mean? I gotta tell you, I have never seen two men not want to be in a room so bad as when they asked how they were going to determine what was lewd or indecent. And the guy at the podium looked at the police chief and said, that will be at the discretion of Hurricane PD. While looking like he wanted to crawl out of his skin. And that police officer looked at him with this mix of, you asshole, and why are we all sitting here? In perfect balance. I've never seen two men who wanted to be elsewhere so badly. It's the same guy who brought up the men not dressing as women comment, not making it to the bill, was the same one who read 3 minutes of fucking Leviticus in a courthouse. No, it's a city hall, but still. In a government building. There's no reason to read 3 minutes of Leviticus anywhere, but especially not in a government building. I feel like I'm screaming into the void. I had this whole thing done, and then I decided I didn't like the way I'd done it, and so I'm doing it again and again and again. I feel like I am just stuck in some sort of liminal shit show. It's a good way to describe this video. If you're still watching me scream into the void, I just want you to know that I very much appreciate that. I have come to accept that I may be the only human being who watches this far into the video. And I have come to understand that sometimes it is more important to speak your piece than it is to be heard. And I just gotta live with that. Because I gotta get this out of me. I gotta get this off my editor. So let's make our nice little cathartic end cap and be done for a little while. And just, we'll figure out ways to live better and stop this force of madness. I don't hate these people. I don't hate Christians. In fact, I've got a lot of really lovely people in my life that are Christian, true Christian, who go out and do things that I think Jesus probably would actually approve of. For example, Ollie from earlier in this video is a part of Mothman Ministries. They put together brown bag lunches and passed them around Huntington like a couple of weeks ago from me shooting this bit. That seems like something that Jesus would appreciate. I don't know the guy personally, but it seems like something he would enjoy. It's not for me to say whether these people are real Christians or not. That's something that they're going to have to work out between themselves and their God. I do think that they have been manipulated. I do think that they are angry and scared over shadows. And it feels like they have created this imaginary force of evil and superimposed it on people they didn't understand. And that's very sad and scary. It's a little scary. Yeah. That's, those are my feelings on it. I got a list of about 5 things that you can do to just help improve the world in general. First of all, you don't have to be a shit stirrer. Don't attack individuals. Like, these people in this video don't even really need to know that this video happened. They're probably not going to go looking for it, and there's no reason for anybody to send it to them. There's no reason to harass them or anything like that. They are pretty insignificant in the grand scheme of things. And I do hope that they find Jesus, because apparently they don't know who that guy is, but they are not worth it. You know, they're not worth it. If you get a chance to go to a protest, I definitely suggest going, specifically if you believe in the cause. Make sure that if you do go to protest, to try to be safe, you know, go in groups. Sing your cadence, don't scream it, so that you can kind of preserve your voice. That's a big tip that I haven't seen a lot of places, but it really does make a difference. Vote responsibly, which basically means if you haven't registered to vote, I'm going to try and put a link in the description below. You can also go on Ballotpedia, put in your town, your address, or like zip code and stuff, whatever, and it'll show you who's going to be on your ballot, and you can kind of do a little bit of research. It's 45 fucking minutes, man. That's shorter than this damn video to find out who to vote for, really. If you can stomach it, run for small office. Spend some time with your community. Just, you know, get to know your neighbor, get to know your town, get to know the people around you. Go to fucking craft circle. Be a part of the community. And mutual aid is one of the things that a lot of people I've heard who got involved in this have said, and it's kind of amazing. I really think that's it. I think that's all the energy I have. I had tried to make this shorter, but that's what I got. I don't think I'm going to have anything for Patreon from all this bullshit, and I'm sorry for that. I appreciate you guys a lot. Safe travel and much profit to you.